How's London? Are you all excited? It's not raining, there's no thunderstorm out there today, for a change. It's nice and sunny, unlike your normal London, right? So, fantastic. So, good afternoon, I'm Sunil Ramakrishnan. I'm a Vice President at CGI. What I'm going to do today is talk about how AI is transforming fuel and convenience retail. Before I jump into that topic, just a quick show of hands. How many of you own an electric vehicle? Not many. I'm not surprised at all. I think we still have some time before EV becomes the reality for all of us. So till that happens, for all the other people who don't own an EV, what do you think about your fuel retail station? Do you think it's an exciting place to visit, or is it boring? You can shout out. It's a nice, cozy community here.
Boring.
Boring, good one. So you're not the only group here, right? Pretty much 70+% of people we have surveyed say that going to a fuel station is not exciting. They think they go there because it's like a utility. You have to go there, fill up your car, and they are just looking forward to just rush away from there. Why do you think that's happening? It's happening because it's not exciting. It's not giving customers experience in terms of taking them to a level where they feel motivated to visit the fuel station. So what our intent here is to change that. And we think there's a lot of things that data sciences, AI, ML can do to actually get you closer to the customer, really understand what they want, give them personalized offers that resonate them, and convert that place to a destination that's really entertaining, engaging, and makes them come there often than just move to one brand to another brand. So what I'm going to do now is show you a very quick video clip, and then we will talk a bit around what we saw in that video clip. So thank you for patiently hearing. So I think what I want to highlight here is it's all about not stopping in terms of identifying a customer when he enters a particular fuel station and then leaves, but look at it from an entire customer journey. How do I engage the customer even before he visits the fuel station? How do I continue to engage him, inspire him, give him something that he looks forward to even after he leaves the station? So I think what we see is more and more data science and AI can play a part on giving customers an omni-channel based experience. So when I say omni-channel, traditionally it used to be segmented into two things. One was a customer coming to your fuel station or your retail convenience store, and that was a physical outlet. And the second used to be e-commerce, where a customer goes online, buys things using a click and collect. But now we see a third segment appearing. And that third segment is actually enabling something called a commerce that is physical, that is digital, and something we call as next generation immersive digital stores. So when I say next generation immersive digital stores, I'm not going to keep it a bit like a suspense, and I'll talk about few of the clients, companies who are actually already adopting it, and the big difference that that's making to them. So what we are talking about here is all about looking at the entire customer journey, where the customer is, and giving them different ways to, let's say, engage, shop, and keep coming to you in the physical store, online, and even in different Web3 type of platforms, things like metaverse, things like in the car, things like in anywhere. And that's where we want to see retail getting adopted and engaging the customers across various channels in a very omni-channel mechanism. So before I actually continue on my discussion, I want to just highlight to you some of the industry challenges. So one is macro challenges. So typically when I say macro, these are challenges that are faced in the entire industry. It's not restricted to a specific company, or it is not restricted to, let's say, one location of a specific company. It's across the board in the industry. So first one is sustainability. There's a big customer drive to see the companies become sustainable. And this is all aligned in terms of, is the company I'm buying, let's say, fuel from, or let's say convenience retail from, is having plans to become net zero. So these are some of the things that customers need. And I'll show you how it all weaves together in terms of solutions and what some of the companies are doing. The second one is electric vehicles. So electric vehicles, as we rightly saw, very few people have it now, but in the next 5 years, that number is going to almost flip over. And we will be pretty much seeing a pivot moment where we will see more and more electric vehicles coming. So what does it mean when we see more and more electric vehicles coming with longer chargers? A lot of these customers will stop going to a fuel station, will stop going to a convenience retailer. They will charge it at home. Why do you really have to go someplace? And that is a very, very big risk for the industry. Some of the companies have 7,000 retail stations just in United Kingdom. And globally, many of them have 300,000 of these physical spaces. So what happens to them when more and more of customers start charging their car at home? That's going to be a big industry problem. And the third is working from home, right? So since the last 2 years, we see more and more people not necessarily traveling a lot. People are preferring to either work from home or work from a location that they are very comfortable with. So what happens in this scenario when people stop, let's say, traveling the way they used to travel 2-3 years back? So that's a big industry challenge as well. That means they will be consuming less fuel. They will be actually getting less options to engage with the brand in a physical store. And that's again a big challenge. The next one is a micro level challenges. These are challenges that individual companies within the industry face. So one of them is loyalty, as we spoke about. So how many of you are loyal to your fuel provider? So if you go to a fuel station of BP, would you go there every time? Or if you go to a fuel station of Shell, would you go there every time? How many of you are loyal to your fuel station? I hardly see a raise of hands. So typically less than 10% of customers are loyal to a specific brand, and that's based on research and based on even a sample group we see here. That's a big challenge for the company. Companies who spend hundreds of millions of dollars on marketing, hundreds of millions of dollars on coming up with CRM systems, ERP systems to better understand customers, they are failing in a big way. And that's something that companies understand, and it's a big, big problem for them, because converting a normal customer into a loyal customer means suddenly you can double your revenues. And that's a huge, huge differentiator for companies who are at times struggling to grow even more than 5% a year. The second quick challenge is the one in the middle. The fuel stations are no more the place that is exciting. Many of them actually are losing out to some of the other bigger supermarkets which have better propositions to sell to, and that's impacting a typical, let's say, independent fuel station retailer. And the last is cost, right? How much percentage of the fuel cost is actually going to taxes and government levies and so on? almost 30%. A large part of the fuel retailers' margin is eroded with taxes and different things that they actually have to pay. And a very, very small part of the margin actually is something that they make from selling fuel. And rough estimates are they actually almost make zero margin just selling fuel in their fuel station. The only way they can make margin is selling you convenience products that are sold in the fuel station. So with these type of industry challenges, what I want to do is I want you to now come up with a positive story. Now, how do I use these new type of technologies to overcome these challenges, still grow market share, still increase revenues and become profitable and make customers like you and come to your fuel station as well as convenience fuel stores. So to convert something we call a visitor who would come to a fuel station and not come there for the next 2-3 months to a customer who comes there every month, there are two strategies that these companies can adopt. One is something we call as defensive strategy. So these are large organizations who have 7,000 plus fuel stations just in UK as an example. Many of them have more than 200,000 globally. They want to defend their market share. They want the revenues to be at least where they were a few years back. So what they are doing is they are looking at data science and AI to now how do I now better understand the customers that are already listed in my loyalty apps, give them personalized propositions. And that's where we see a lot of focus and effort from a defensive strategy point of view to get more customers to come to you and increase loyalty. And just as a recap, a loyal customer is typically 2x revenues. That's simple mathematics. The second strategy is what we call as offensive strategy. So this is something that you would have heard a lot about. I am someone who is going to come in and disrupt the market. So these are the new nimble players who enter the market and see that there's a margin to be made here and take over the business. So few examples are the big retailers who suddenly saw that I'm actually selling groceries, selling clothes, selling stuff. Why not now sell fuel as well? So I become a one-stop shop. So these have come in and disrupt the market. And what they are now doing is using data science and AI to get the entire customer data, things like Tesco and so on, who actually get so much of data about you in terms of what you do, what you spend, where you buy, when you buy, what you buy. They actually can use a lot of that data to come up with what product would you be liking, when you would be liking. So they can actually give you personalized offers, discounts to make you come to them. So those are some of the things that these offensive strategy-led companies are doing. And I'll actually give you specific examples before I actually jump into it, but this gives you a big view of what these strategies are and how these companies are adopting it. And the solutions are going to be very simple, right? So it's all about omnichannel as we spoke about. It's no more sufficient that you're focusing just on your fuel retail station or your convenience retail station or your grocery shop, but you need to have an omnichannel strategy where you are able to give the customer things where he needs it, when he needs it, and in the speed that he needs it. And this is using physical stores, e-commerce, as well as new marketplaces, things like you would have heard Shopify, which is a big e-commerce platform which is getting different suppliers and sellers in, as well as using new Web3 type of technologies, which are actually changing the way these customers now engage with brands. And there are new products that actually can be now taken to these customers. So just to give an example, right, just metaverse and thinking of a very traditional company like Adidas. And I'll talk about something called non-fungible tokens later on. But just to give you a view, Adidas sold around 30,000 non-fungible tokens, which are called NFTs. And I'll talk about that in a bit detail more. And they made $22 million of revenue out of it. And this is something completely new in terms of the marketplace, completely new in terms of the customer segment, and even completely new in terms of a product. So all of that is really enabled using all of these type of new technologies, which are not only helping these companies, brands increase revenues, reduce costs by bringing in just-in-time supply chain management and so on, because now you can better understand what customer wants, bring in the products that they would buy, and ensure that there is no wastage. So it's also enabling your sustainability agenda. Most of these type of solutions enable companies reduce waste by even 30 to 40%. So what I'm going to do now is very quickly take you through 4 examples. We spoke a lot about theory, right? I want to show something real to you. So first example is Alibaba. How old do you think is Alibaba? Just don't need to worry if it's right or wrong. How old do you think is Alibaba as a company? 20 years, a very good answer, because typically when I ask this question, people say 5 years, 10 years. It actually is 22 years old. It's an old company. But if you think about it, what they have done is amazing. They have completely understood what customers want, and they have done something using a lot of these technologies we spoke about to better engage the customer. I'll give you an example. So Alibaba has a store brand called Hema. What it does is, you actually enter the store. It's actually something similar to what we spoke about. It's like a new digital store. So you enter the store. The store doesn't have a lot of products, but you use your phone. You can scan through the products they have, and if there's a specific product that doesn't have the size you want, you can click on it, order it, and it actually gets delivered within half an hour if you're in a 3-mile radius, without even having to search for it, pick it up and take it home. That's just one example. The second example is, people could actually try out cosmetics in a digital type of a scenario and see actually how does it look like when they actually apply it, and the same it again delivered to your door. So a lot of these type of concepts is something called a digital store, and what it's enabling is 3 things. One is getting customers an area where they are actually excited. Second is giving them options in terms of the products they want across the size that they need. And the third is it's solving a big pain problem, because typically when you go to a physical store, you don't necessarily know a lot of things about the product. So if, let's say, you go to a physical store and look at a specific, let's say, shoe, you have no clue about what the shoe is made of. You don't know what the different reviews of that shoes are. You don't know typically what is the sustainability record of that shoe. So what they have additionally done is enabled the customers using the phone to scan a QR code of the product and get all the information that typically an e-commerce buyer would get sitting at home, even in the shop as well. So all of these 3 things mean suddenly these stores are becoming a very engaging and exciting place to be, where traditionally people can go, look at stuff, touch stuff. They can get exactly what they want. They can even know what other people have spoken about the product, the rankings, ratings, reviews, which suddenly makes it a very, very exciting place to be. And just to close on to that point there, customers could even go to these places, look for cars, and there's a big building where you actually press a button and the car you chose comes out, and you could even test drive the car. So it's completely transforming the physical experience enabled by digital, and all of that using data science and AI, because they now understand what type of products these customers would want, at what time, in what locations, and a lot of this data, including weather, enable them reduce the stock levels they keep as well. I'm not going to go too much in detail, but Amazon Go is a brand everyone knows, right? It's all around reducing the friction in a customer experience, because there are customers who just want to pick up stuff and leave. So it's pretty much enabling that type of a use case where you just go to a store with the Amazon Go app, just pick up stuff and you leave. That's the customer experience. But what's the technology behind it? There are hundreds of sensors and cameras that are there in a store. And what it is doing is it's analyzing everything from what you are doing when you're entering a store, to where a product is placed, to based on geolocation, what are you going to actually do when you actually come to a specific place. So it's actually getting so much of data and insights about you, and that's actually enabling them further to further optimize their supply chain, further optimize the products they keep there, and it's still keeping a good customer experience for customers who just wants to get in, pick up stuff and leave. So that's a very, very simple use case, and that's what Amazon is doing. The third is Carrefour. How many of you know about who Carrefour is? Very, very surprising. That's a lot of people who know Carrefour. So Carrefour is actually a $90 billion company. It's 3 times bigger than our Sainsbury's in UK. And they have some tens of thousands of retail outlets across the world. So what that company has done is again very, very interesting, right? So they are also looking at how do I take advantage of my physical retail stores and make it digital. So one of the stores that you would go there, you would be actually able to see digital price tags, digital product codes, by which when a customer goes to the store, you can actually scan a product that's out there, and actually you can understand things about what was the product made about, the sustainability credential of the product. If there is a specific discount that has to come on the product, it automatically comes there in the digital display, and it makes the customer experience far more exciting and relevant for customers. The second aspect, what they have done very interestingly is use machine learning to predict what customers would do. So what they have done is using a lot of data from the information that they have got about the customer and what typically happens during the days in a specific location and so on, they're able to anticipate customer needs. And that's enabling their stock units to be kept at a scenario where they don't necessarily have products that don't sell fast. So that's the efficiency angle of it. And all of that is really something happening at the moment and real, which is what data science is doing in terms of transforming a large retailer, which you would call it as a defensive retailer, but suddenly now growing at almost a bigger number than they were growing before. And to be very open, data sciences was only live about 2-3 years back. And that's already shown so much of results for them, which really is a great use case of how it's going to adopt to everyone. And I'm going to close out with a fourth point, just to keep it exciting, right? I spoke about metaverse, I spoke about Web3. So how many of you know what sandbox is? Not very surprised, I know Trevor will know that. So sandbox is something we could call as Web3. So what's happening here? These are new marketplaces. So these are, let's say, virtual marketplaces where sitting anywhere in the world, in your house, in your car, or in the park, you could actually enter a specific marketplace and you could even buy stuff, transact stuff, and do stuff. So quick example is a super yacht. So there was a non-fungible token of a super yacht that got sold for $650,000. And people will think that's silly, right? But think from a point of view of people who were bidding for it and bought it. So it's a 3-story yacht, which is virtual, it's not real. But it's got everything from a disco booth to it's got to helipads to everything. It's got exclusive access to a marina in that virtual world of Sandbox. But what it means is it suddenly became a store of value, which means someone thought that I'm buying it for $650K now. If I hold on to it, there's a possibility I could use this virtual yacht in the new virtual worlds that are getting created. And suddenly the value of that could grow massively. So these are some of the new things that are emerging. And just going back to the example of Adidas, right, where we spoke about almost 30,000 NFTs were sold by Adidas themselves in the last year. And that itself resulted in 22 million revenue, which is pretty exciting, right? So these are some of the new marketplaces beyond the physical, the e-commerce, that more and more companies are now getting into to really engage with customers that they never really engaged before, creating a more exciting omni-channel type of a scenario for them. And third is creating disruptive and new products that typically they did not sell before. So that's mainly it from me, and open up for any questions.
Thank you, Sunil. Are there any questions from the floor, by the way? Okay. If anyone does have any, just shove your hand up. Sunil, I've got a couple of questions for you. You don't get away that easily.
Thanks.
Now, you talked about how can you actually turn electric charging stations into destinations in their own right? Because I'm lucky enough to drive an electric car, and it means obviously you have to have that dwell time and you've got to stay in a certain location. So it's a completely different experience. But there are very few retailers at the moment who are really tapping into the fact that you do have that captive audience for longer, because people tend to park at convenient places where they'd already be staying anyway. So like if they're going to the supermarket or if they're going to a cinema, They'll just do that rather than going to a charger specifically.
Exactly. So I think you have got an amazing point. Right? The amazing point here is more and more of the existing fuel retailers who have huge amount of fuel stations, some of them have 30,000 globally, suddenly realize that once people come for charging, there is a captive audience who would be spending 30 minutes to sometime an hour there. So what do we do with that? And that's where that element of how do I create more experience for this is what's happening a lot. And a few examples that I see here is some of these large fuel retailers are now thinking of, can I create new type of services for these customers? So convenience is already there. They can actually buy food, they can buy clothes. So I was talking to a large fuel retailer in Europe, and what they are thinking of is they are trying to create a complete customer experience there. They're even thinking of there will be a cinema there. So for example, even if you're coming there to charge your car for 1 hour, you could spend that 1 hour, 2 hours watching a movie. You could make it into a family experience where instead of people typically going for the movies or going to an amusement center, you come to this fuel station, and that would have all these facilities from malls to movie theaters to even amusement parks. And they're trying to see more and more value of how do I convert these into destinations. And the second aspect there is they're now looking at new solutions as well. In addition to not only enabling these customers charge, can I give them swapped batteries? So for example, if a customer really doesn't have 1 hour to wait and doesn't want to watch a movie and is still ready to pay a premium, more and more of these companies would offer these customers batteries that can be swapped in and swapped out, and they can just leave in another 5 minutes, which could be even faster than the traditional filling of our petroleum fuels.
Yeah, that seems like a really good model to me. I mean, there's a company, a Chinese manufacturer called NIO, I think, that make those cars that have the replaceable batteries. And it's strange, like, because that's what we always used to do. Even with mobile phones, you used to have replaceable batteries that you'd clip on and off, showing my age here. You used to clip them on and off rather than plugging them in. And that seems to make sense with electric cars as well. Do you think that's the way that we might start going?
So that is what will be dictated by customers. But if I am a retail brand, right, I wouldn't want a customer to come in, swap the battery and leave. I would want the customer to be spending more and more time in my asset or in my physical store. And I'll tell you why, right? The more and more the customer spends time there, he will come up with some things like impulse purchases, or he would come up with things that resonate with him in terms of, let's say, I need to buy this dress, or I need to buy this food, or I want to have some food, or so on. So it's a 50-50, right? So there will be customers that will be catered to, as you rightly said, who can just come in and go out, who will be charged a premium for doing that. But customers who are ready to wait for an hour may get a lower premium product pricing, so that they end up buying other stuff, which is all about cross-selling, upselling, and all about then better understanding those customers and giving them specific personalized propositions. For example, when they come in to charge, they could get an offer code on, let's say, having coffee. So there's an incentive for these retailers to make you spend more time, but you're right, both the options will be on. It's not going to be one or the other.
And let's talk just very briefly about price. So like for traditional fuels, if you like, here in the UK, I think fuel has gone up something like 32% in the last year. I think it is. I think it's the last year in the inflation figures. So the cost of fuel means that fewer people are actually going and using these petrol stations at the moment anyway. So how do retailers combat something like that that's pretty much out of their hands?
It's an amazing point, right? That's the second challenge, and I think that's part of the challenges I raised, where electric charging and charging at home also is impacting the same thing. So what now more and more of these retailers are thinking of, how do I now create a new channel of now entering your house? So there are elements of wherever you would be actually having these charging points set up in your house, in your community, there will be things like digital display. So that digital display will be very similar to the examples where we saw at Alibaba and so on, where these digital displays will be called smart digital displays, where in addition to taking a particular plug point out and charging your car, it will actually give you some personalized offers of, let's say there's coffee at 20% off, and something like a Uber Eats or a Deliveroo would deliver it to your house. So now they suddenly are realizing that there is a risk in the next 5 years, customers may not even turn up in our shops, right? So what do we do? So yeah, so they are entering your house, and One of the options is this smart digital displays, which is disrupting it. And that's what we already see in China in terms of stores becoming new digital immersive stores as well. So,
And just very quickly, why is China leading the way on this stuff?
it's a good point. And during the lunch break, actually, someone did ask me exactly the same question. And I can tell you because last year I did visit China in spite of whatever was happening there. And what was very interesting is the regulatory regime in China versus in Europe and US. And maybe Europe is even worse, right? So in Europe, we have GDPR. We have something called privacy laws. What it all means is big retailers have to do so many checks and balances before they even can use your data. First of all, they have to ask you for permission of whether I can take your data. Once they get your data, they have to continuously govern it, monitor it, and ensure that that data doesn't get leaked or lost or stolen. Third is anytime a customer may suddenly come and say, I don't want you to use my data. So all of that means there's huge challenges. Plus the GDPR fines are huge as well. And some of them runs into hundreds of millions of dollars depending on our turnover, right? Versus in China, it's slightly different because the country has been encouraging new technologies. In China, there's almost a big percentage of citizens already using facial recognition technology versus specifically in Germany, we can't. I can't use my car's number plate to be shown because in Germany the regulations are far more stricter. So the regulation does play a big part, but the second part is surely the government encouraging a lot of these new technologies, which is why things are. So quick example, right? So in UK, e-commerce penetration is 30%. In China, it's 50%. So all of that does suddenly make China lead in this way, but regulations does hamper the rest of the world.
Okay, that's all we've got time for. I'd love to talk to you for ages about all these topics, Sunil. Thank you, Sunil.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Sunil. Let me take that.